Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a little bit more commentary. This video is something that seemed interesting to me, and it seems like it's going to be a back and forth between people like Destiny and MAGA. So let's dive right into it. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff.
That was pretty incredible. The United States should increase legal immigration. Move.
The United States should increase illegal immigration. Increase. Yeah, I agree. We need more people. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what's kind of interesting to me is that there's a longing talking point that we don't have enough people, we need to have more babies and all that stuff. But immigration is the perfect tool to resupply your population. And although, of course, we don't just want to bring anybody in, if we can bring in and have a more efficient process to bring in illegal immigrants, I feel like there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, decide from amongst yourselves who you want to come up. Decide from amongst yourselves who you want to come up. Why don't you come up first?
Okay.
And then we'll substitute you in later.
Shout out
Okay,
Green Tea.
You have 3 minutes. Have a conversation with him. Each of you give each other your best arguments.
Okay, I guess from an economic perspective, our unemployment is very low. It seems like one of the biggest frustrations this administration is currently expressing is that all of Mexico is stealing our ability to manufacture things. So I don't know why we would kick out all of the workers back in Mexico to go steal our manufacturing abilities. I don't know why we wouldn't just welcome more people into the United States and do stuff here.
Okay, I guess my answer to that would be I don't think we have a shortage of foreign-born Americans in this country already, and I don't think we have a shortage of Americans that are looking for work in these different fields, especially like in tech and like what we use the HB1 visas for. I'd say that it's time to, I'm an immigrant myself, I'm first generation, and I'm all for people coming and bringing something and adding something to the country, but I feel like we're on this point where a lot of people are coming just to get everything that they can out of the country without contributing much to it. So I'd say it's time to focus on the people already here.
I totally and completely disagree with every factual part of that. I think that nobody comes to the United States for our welfare state here. It just doesn't really exist. Even the illegal immigrants that we have here are working. I mean, like every economic indicator, whether you want to look at the U3 or the U6 or labor force participation, shows that we are super hungry for workers here. I think if you go down literally any street, you'll see every restaurant, you'll see every construction site, you'll see.
And this is 100% true. Like in terms of like the kind of baseline workers, the laborers that we're talking about, that is actually a problem, right? That we need more of that. So it's interesting to me that people bring up that we have people in America that are willing to do these jobs, but they don't do these jobs. They don't even try to do these jobs. Now, I do think there's a compelling argument to be made that to the fact that these illegal immigrants, and when we say illegal, I want to preface that these are people who are here for waiting their kind of legal process. They're not here because they got on a boat and just escaped all of US security. That's not how it works. And I know it gets kind of overshadowed, but I'm just explaining to you right now. Illegal immigrants are not illegal because they came here undetected. They're illegal because their process has not been illegally confirmed and they're awaiting the process. That's what illegal immigrants mean when it comes to people coming into the country. People who are not supposed to be in the country are deported. That's how the process works. But there's a bit of a backlog. With that said, yeah, I don't think a lot of Americans want to do not low skilled, but more like hard working, boots to the ground type of labor.
Tech in San Francisco begging for workers. The idea that the United States can't employ people that are coming here just is a total myth. I understand that there are parts of Europe that have this issue, but for some reason we'd like to pretend it's the same. But I think in the United States we can utilize a ton of extra labor here. And I don't see any reason why we can't take care of the people that we have here, especially when one of our big problems is shoring up our Medicare while bringing in other younger people to work and help alleviate those issues.
Okay, what was the point you said before that? Sorry, that was a lot.
I think that we're so hungry for labor in the U.S.
Oh, okay, sure. So I don't think that I'm not saying it's a myth that we can't employ foreign-born workers. I'm saying that a lot of the reasons, like this debate with HB1, what they're doing is that they're hiring people at much cheaper rates than they would hire Americans for. And I understand there's economic incentive for that. But I'm not saying that we can't, like it's a myth that we can't hire these people. I'm saying it would be better if we were to hire our own and then pay them a living wage.
I understand that. But we already are. I mean, like, you can check out the Bureau of Labor Statistics. If you look at, like, computer science people, the unemployment between these people is like 1.9%. It is unbelievably low. It's one of the lowest unemployment sectors in the entire economy. I think we are super hungry for H-1B workers, especially, like, educated workers. I don't know why you would push talent out of the United States instead of welcoming them here, because if they're going to, you know, work anywhere, why would we not have them work in the United States?
Yeah,
So that is such a powerful point. I want to kind of make this very clear. One thing that is being understated in terms of what the United States is and what it's always been is accepting and pushing the American dream. And I do think we're reaching to a point where it's kind of getting a little dicey and dangerous, where people thinking that coming to the United States is not as fruitful and as luxurious that they may have initially thought due to, I'm not going to say propaganda, but due to the image of what America should be, right? The kind of backlash when it comes to immigration, the backlash when it came to these H-1B visas from MAGA, and just the outlook of America right now with its current political atmosphere. A lot of people, I'm not even talking about the funds that are getting cut for nonsense. A lot of people are going to start thinking about going to other countries. There is a movement right now from France and Germany in accepting the scientists from the United States who are losing their funding because of Doge. So if people are going to start believing that coming to America is not a good thing, that's losing a lot of manpower, a lot of brain power that makes America so great. People want to come into the country. If we lose that, then our power of being the strongest, the best, the just overall number one of the number ones, the king of kings, that's going to become problematic.
I don't disagree with that if it's like actual talent, for sure. I just feel like that is used by corporations and employers in semi-insidious ways that end up screwing the population that's already here.
Okay, did anybody hear anything that caused them to move? Nope. Okay, so I'm going to swap you two out, and we're going to swap you two out. You have 2 minutes.
This country was built on immigrants. The original people that came to this country are the Native Americans, and everybody else is an immigrant. And we all contribute to the country. We all contribute taxes. The key word here is legal immigrants. That's the key word in that whole question. Legal immigrants, we pay taxes. We pay Social Security. We contribute to the economy of the country.
I think what you're saying is counter to what you're saying. You absolutely agree we should allow illegal immigration.
Legal.
Legal immigration. Oh, of course we should.
Oh, do you want to change your mat?
I'm sorry, I thought you said.
No, the U.S. should increase legal immigration. You're welcome to. Are you now on his side of the? The U.S. should increase legal immigration.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh, well, that changes things. That was an incredible performance. Wow.
It did sound like he said illegal at first. I'm gonna be honest. It really did sound like that.
That was pretty credible. Okay, everybody go back to neutral. The U.S. needs more foreign workers. Move.
The U.S. needs more foreign workers. Needs is a very interesting word in this conversation. The U.S. needs foreign workers. Do we need foreign workers? I mean, going back to the kind of low-skilled labor, and I hate to call it low-skilled. I do think there's a better terminology, because it's not low-skilled to do construction work by any means. Not everybody could do it. More just hands-on labor. I think that's a better terminology. So for hands-on labor, I do think there's a legitimate conversation that foreign workers are more willing to do that work compared to Americans. So I would put slightly agree for me.
Okay, grab the board over there, please. And sir, grab the board. I want you to write down the best reason you have for standing on that mat. And don't let anybody see. What is your best reason you have for standing on that mat? I want you to guess what is the reason he has written on the board.
I believe he has statistics as to why we need more people from out of the country, and that we don't have enough people here to suffice the needs of the United States.
In one sentence, what is it?
Statistics showing an argument versus what I'm saying, period.
Is that correct? Statistics showing an argument?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, you
Low
got it.
unemployment, yeah.
You guessed it. Okay, now why is he standing on the absolutely disagree?
I mean, I guess there's something to do with a cultural aspect of Americans and not bringing in too much foreign culture.
Is that correct? Don't show him yes or no.
No, we don't.
Okay, yes again.
Then domestic labor needs more opportunity to work here. We should be manufacturing things with American workers.
Is that correct?
Well, we have enough people here.
We have enough people here. Okay, I'll grab this. Explain to him your reason.
Well,
This is a fun activity. It's kind of inspiring me in terms of navigating conversations in a more fun way, because this doesn't need to always be like super serious. Sometimes it can be very arduous and boring. Like I follow politics pretty closely because it's important to be able to engage in these conversations that are pivotal in establishing the future of America and the future of people in general, right? So I feel like it's more mandatory for me to engage in politics, not really a joy thing, even though I love to use my brain in a very intelligent manner. With that said, I definitely will take some notes here. I have some content that I do for my podcast. Make sure you guys go check the podcast out. Purple Political Breakdown. And I'm starting to navigate conversations in a more, I wouldn't say Socratic way, but a more open forum way. So those are things that won't be appearing on the YouTube channel. I don't even know if I'm going to clip it up, depending on my individual time, but we will see.
Are we lacking people in the United States, that we don't have enough people to just suffice our needs and solve our own issues?
Yeah,
Right, we do.
we're lacking.
No, what are we lacking?
More people. Labor is one of your most important economic inputs. Why not have more workers?
But we have enough workers. We have
Why not for
people.
what?
You know what's in? I do think people underestimate. You know what's the perfect way to visualize the difference and the necessity behind labor is to compare our population to China's, right? And I'm not saying we need the population of China, but if one thing that we know, other than our values of freedom, that if China got their ish together, the one thing they have over us that we cannot compete is people. So at some point, there definitely needs to be recognition that more people is better than less people. Obviously, you want to have the system in place to ensure that there is a level of equality across the board, but it definitely is not something to just scoff and overlook.
We have a population of how many people? You would know this.
Well, like 336 million people or something?
Okay, so is 336 million people not enough to suffice our problems?
Well, you can always have more, no?
Why would you have more if you have enough?
How much money do you have in your bank account? Would you want more?
What I have in my bank account has nothing to do with the reality that we have enough people in the United States to suffice our needs.
How do you define enough?
Look around.
Okay, I looked around, there's not enough.
Okay, how do you determine there's not enough?
Unemployment is below 5%
Okay, so why is unemployment below 5%?
because you don't have enough people in our workforce to employ.
No, those are statistics that we don't know truly what. And we obviously have enough people.
How do we
Now-
obviously have enough if we can't trust the statistics?
Well, listen, statistics have a very narrow view of something.
Okay, so yeah, he's one of those people that only believes his conspiratorial agendas. He lost all credibility. He lost all credibility. I need people to start like stop doing this thing where it's like, oh, I don't trust this. Do I have a good reason why I don't trust this? No, I'm gonna say, well, do you trust everything? No, come on. Institutions are built based off trust. If you don't want to abide by the trust of the institutions that you live in, then go live in the forest by yourself in where there's no rules and no institutions. Because I'm not here to deal with your bullshit. I'm gonna be honest.
That's far more deeper than that. If we have enough people that are, if we remove the illegals, first of all, if we get rid of people that are here against the law, which our country has created laws for reasons, we will finally know the actual
They
answer
are
to this,
here
'cause then we have to
within the
fill those
law.
jobs, won't we?
Yeah, and then our unemployment would be even worse. It would go even lower.
We don't have a crystal ball. We'll have to find out now.
Well, I
that Trump
imagine
is
if you
doing the right thing.
remove people and you fill more people into jobs, then the unemployment would go even lower, right? We would get to like 1% or less or something, right?
Well, exactly what would happen once we get rid of the illegals.
So how in your mind do you decide if there are enough people here or not?
Well, we'll find out once we do the right thing. First of all, go against anything that's illegal, right? We have laws in place for a reason.
That would mean removing Trump from office, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
How is Trump illegal in the office?
I'm
Okay,
curious,
we'll
how do we
keep it to
decide?
this.
How do we decide? The problem I have with this is that we have a lot of numbers that tell us information about the health of the economy. It seems like having more workers is generally good as long as unemployment isn't too high or wages aren't being pushed too low. And it seems like every sector is really hungry for extra labor. You've got tech asking for H-1B workers. You've got agriculture. They're worried that illegals are going to be kicked out of the country. They won't have a workforce. There are so many sectors that are hungry for workers. Why would we? not
Isn't it
allow
a
more?
mystery that we've had statistics for how long in this country? Yet nothing's gone right.
I think a lot of things have
What? I have to. This is my reaction face, right? If I'm in front of this person, I feel like I would be much more civil. I've talked to a lot of different types of people. It's just like when I hear something so stupid, I want to be upset, but I need to calm down. At the end of the day, when you look at the course of American history, there's a lot of factors that play into the status quo and what is happening right now, what happened before. unless people have this ideal that a perfect utopia can exist, everything is a feel out process to create a better world. What is undeniable is that America as a whole, in terms of what certain principles that they abide by, have been improving since its inception. Now, are there things that can be discussed and whether they should be improved? Of course. That's what conversation is for. But saying, "Oh yeah, we had statistics before and nothing's getting better," is a very ignorant, foolish, and stupid way to look at the course of America and the course of our current society.
Going right. I think we're in a wonderful country right now. I think we got how many immigrated people here?
We have
We've
Trump
got
in the office. That's great, right?
no, we're not perfect, but
Well, we're solving a problem. Let's keep it simple. We have illegals in the country. Let's get rid of the illegals and then see what actually
wouldn't
transpires.
the easiest way to get rid of every illegal in this country be to create a path to citizenship for the people here,
But
or at
there
least
are,
a
there
path
are
to
paths to citizenship.
realistic ones that don't have a 25-year wait list?
25-year wait list. I don't know anyone that's waited 25 years to get legally here in the United States.
Anybody from Mexico that doesn't win an immigration lottery or doesn't have a family member here it's like a 20-year plus wait list.
No, listen. Whatever it takes to become legal, there are laws in place for a reason.
So he didn't know, he got corrected, and then he went back to his initial statement. They don't really care about the anything that is being taught about. They just have a talking point, and everything kind of goes back to that overarching light bulb right there.
If you want to change the laws, you're welcome to do so.
Okay, I'll meet you halfway then. I would agree that we should substantially reduce the amount of illegals here if we made it substantially easier and cut dramatically the wait time to legally immigrate into this country.
Well, Trump's all about eliminating bureaucracy and wait times.
Would you agree with that then? We'll dramatically increase the amount of legal immigration.
I'm not educated enough to know what the solution would be.
Well, I didn't ask. I'm just curious, just on a vibes basis.
And then we'll end this. All right, hold on. Then we'll end.
Yeah, so let's say right now we could snap our fingers and it would work in a way that wouldn't be catastrophic. Would you be okay with dramatically increasing the amount of legal immigration coming to this country, assuming they were coming for jobs, they weren't coming for welfare, they weren't criminals or rapists or any of that stuff? Would you be in favor of that?
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
See, it was just pointless. There was no point there. He just doesn't want brown people to come in the country. There's nothing beyond that surface level thinking right there. And it's crazy because in my podcast, when I was talking to some guy about the immigration, I asked him the same question, and he was so hesitant to agree. It's just like, I don't know what is this holding MAGA back from saying, yeah, I'm okay with more people who are coming into the country as long as they come here with in the right way. Like, the only reason why you would say no is because you believe you're one of those kind of nationalists who think that America should be a very specific way. White and
Did
Christian.
anybody move? Did you move? And where did you move from?
From slightly disagree.
Okay. What convinced you to move?
Because there are so many young people graduating from our universities that are not prepared to take the job opportunities that become available because our university programs are just not preparing them for the subject matter. And so we should educate our own people in the jobs that are becoming available.
So that's what caused you to move?
Yes.
Okay. Who else moved?
Do I think schools need to be better? Yes. But also, a lot of these students don't want to go to certain jobs. I mean, I don't think they're not educated on going to certain jobs. They just don't want to go to certain jobs. I don't know, man. I don't know about that one.
You too. Why did you move, sir?
For 2 reasons.
Ah, you're so good to me.
For 2 reasons, what my colleague was saying, I just want to make 2 points on that. It took me 14 years to become legal. It does take that long to become legal. And also, if America takes the people that has that technological mind from other countries, it gives us the advantage than other countries. So let's bring them here. Let's bring all these educated people legally into America with all the education and the technical know-how. We get the advantage over other countries.
So that's what caused you to change your mind?
Cook.
What caused you to change your mind, sir?
What Destiny said about we don't have industries such as agriculture need more people to be working in those industries. As we've seen with the mass deportation threats that have already been happening under the Trump administration, there's been a lot of concern from farmers, and because that business might literally be crippled without the use of migrant labor. We do need more foreign workers. We need more people to come into the U.S. because American citizens just aren't filling.
There's something I want to say. There's a joke here. I I'm not gonna say
these
it.
jobs. You're not seeing people go out of high school and go into agriculture anymore. You're seeing them go more into college. You're seeing more people in higher
Or
level.
vocational as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we need more.
No, that's a great point. That is a very good point. A lot of the people nowadays are not really going into those vocational, more technician-based jobs. Those schools with where you kind of acquire technical skills, which do pay well, like working at a dumpster, working as a plumber, working as a carpenter. These type of positions are just not something that are appealing to people, and they know they exist, they just don't want to do that type of work. So that is another part of the equation, that Americans inherently, especially young Americans coming up, a lot of their ambitions have been changing. A lot of them want to be content creators, and although there's a lot of appeal there definitely needs to be a conversation that if this is what they are trying to do, then the people who do want to be doing these hands-on labor, more technical jobs, technical as in you using your hands, not technical as in the technology part. If these migrants want to come in and do those jobs, then let them. Like, what's the big deal? Why is that a problem, right?
More foreign workers that could fill these jobs that are not being
Okay.
taken up.
All right, everybody go back to the neutral, please. The best explanation for the increase in illegal immigration during the Biden administration is voter importation. Move.
Heavily disagree. There's no evidence of that.
Wait, as in, like, we agree with that?
Oh, he's full
Yeah,
MAGA.
if you disagree, you're on that side. If you agree, you're over there.
I forgot what the sides were.
Okay. Decide among yourselves who would like to go. Decide among yourselves. Why don't you come up? Perfect. All right, you have 3 minutes to have a conversation.
Go crazy.
Illegal immigrants can't vote. That's it. How would an increase in illegal immigration mean that there are more people voting for Biden when illegal immigrants can't vote?
How old is this
Well,
person?
the Biden administration actually created something called undocumented immigration, right? So they're throwing away their passports, everything they had to be undocumented. And guess what? They come to this country, all of a sudden, they're documented. They are allowed to vote, and in some states, you actually don't need.
I feel like this is a blatant lie. I hold on. Let me hear this again.
An illegal immigration mean that there are more people voting for Biden when illegal immigrants can't vote?
Well, the Biden administration actually created something called undocumented immigration, right? So they're throwing away their passports, everything they had to be undocumented. And guess what? They come to this country, all of a sudden, they're documented. They are allowed to vote, and in some states, you actually don't need any ID to vote. So it seems kind of obvious to me.
You still need to register, correct?
I don't know. I believe that you don't have to register. You don't even have to have a driver's license. You can go into the voter's office and say, I have no ID. Great. Come on in. Let's vote. Remember who brought you here?
So I think that's totally untrue. Just speaking for Florida, because that's where I worked with registering people to vote, we had to register them to vote beforehand. There's a lot of hostile laws in America, in Florida exactly, that make it so if you registered before this amount of time, you're unable to vote. If you messed up registering, you're unable to vote. You are unable to vote unless you were already registered. It's impossible to be an illegal immigrant and vote illegally, and even when we've had instances of voter fraud being caught, they were so low that not only would they it's almost like useless to mention because the amount of voter fraud was so low, but even the ones that did do it
I think it's like less than 1% that this stuff happens. Which, I mean, nothing's perfect, obviously.
caught.
Keyword in the great state of Florida. That's why.
I hate this guy. I'll be honest. He's a piece of garbage. So you got debunked with the undocumented immigrants, and now you change it. Well, Florida's the only one who does that. All the other states don't do that process. They only Florida because Republican. Yo, go F yourself. He said Joe Biden created undocumented immigrants, and undocumented immigrants can vote. I'm trying to find this information because I am very interested on this new
We're here. How many states
claim.
were there allowed to vote without registering, without any ID?
Not certain. Can you tell me?
That's why it's too hard to scam. That's why Trump won. But that was the whole point. I don't have any other reason. Can anyone give me a reason why Biden would decide to do this?
Well, can you tell me one other state that doesn't allow it? That allows voting?
Well, there's California, New York. I mean, I believe there's 7 other states. Remember, I'm uneducated in politics. I can't stand it because it's all.
Oh, so you just say things and you admit you're not educated. He is like one of the worst type of people. I'm not educated, but I'm gonna make this strong claim and believe it. He is one of the worst type of people. I hate people like this with a passion. I do not like them. I think they are terrible people.
Just a farce, but I strongly believe that that was the only reason that Biden allowed all these illegal immigrants to come to this country.
I find it very hard to, I mean, we're both not experts on registering to vote across the nation, but I find it very hard to believe that you would not only not have to register to show no ID. I mean, there's laws that are put in place across the nation making sure that even American citizens don't vote twice or 3 times. Are you saying that there's no voter protection or voter fraud protections in the United States at all?
Yeah, what I've seen in the news and media, YouTube, everything, absolutely. People were voting without.
Oh my God, I hate him. I hate him. He's the epitome of what I hate about MAGA. I hate these people so much.
Any identification.
Okay. All right. Could you come up to the front, sir? And could you come up to the front, sir?
But they don't want
You have
Destiny to just
2
control
minutes.
the entire
So
conversation.
let's go back to the question. What was the reason for the increase in immigration during
Illegal
immigration during the Biden administration? It was the COVID pandemic. What happened, a lot of people in the South America and the Caribbean, which I know because I have family and friends there, got hit economically. They were really struggling. And because I had to send money to people in my country, literally, because people were struggling and they
I'm sorry. So I just went to look up information on my other computer here. That's why I'm looking to the side. USA.gov/who-can-vote. Very easy. Go look it up. I gave you a whole website link, so it's very not hard. And it's from the government, so obviously. Who cannot vote? Non-citizens, including permanent and legal residents, cannot vote in federal, state, and I do think the part that could be an interesting talking point is most local elections. There are some local elections that you can vote, but bringing up that Joe Biden, local elections are not the presidential. And let me put 2 + 2 together for some MAGA. Local elections do not mean federal elections. They have nothing to do with the presidential election. Local elections, votes for some representatives, a mayor maybe. Local elections. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Some places may do local elections, and I do think there's an interesting thing, especially if you have a large amount of undocumented immigrant population in your locality, whether or not they should be able to vote to see what happens to them specifically in that specific region. But if that's the argument, sure. Whatever the other guy, the lie he told about undocumented immigrants can vote, yeah, that's not a thing. And I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to find a link that you can look up. USA.gov/who-can-vote. Simple.
needed some type of avenue, so they flooded the American market.
Why COVID? Could you explain to him why COVID?
Or because COVID caused the economy in most of the Caribbean and South American countries to go bad. So people didn't have work, they didn't have money, they didn't have jobs. So they run to, and unfortunately, and Biden made it a little easier for them to come, but that's the reason they came.
I think Biden made it a lot easier for him to come. But I wanted to address one other thing. Sure. People were allowed, I was a provisional judge for the Board of Elections in the state of Maryland. You did not need an ID to vote. All you needed was a utility receipt with your name and address on it, and you were allowed to vote. And we were specifically instructed we were not allowed to turn away anybody if they wanted to vote.
Instructed by who instructed you?
The Board of Elections. We were not allowed to turn anybody away.
So I'm in California, and of course, I'm now in Florida. You had to have an ID to vote in those 2 states. So I don't know for your state, so I cannot debate your state, but I know for California and now for Florida that I'm in, you have to have an ID to vote.
Okay.
Okay, let me.
So I'm
What is his claim again? I'll just look it up real quick.
But I wanted to address one other thing. Sure. People were allowed, I was a provisional judge for the Board of Elections in the state of Maryland. You did not need an ID to vote. All you needed was a utility receipt with your name and address on it, and you were allowed to vote. And we were specifically instructed we were not allowed to turn away anybody if they wanted to vote.
Instructed by who instructed you?
The Board of Elections. We were not allowed to turn anybody away.
So I'm in California, and of course, I'm now in Florida. You had to have an ID to vote in those 2 states. So I don't know for your state, so I cannot debate your state, but I know for California and now for Florida that I'm in, you have to have an ID to vote.
Okay, so basically what I meant to say also is that we couldn't turn them away to vote. If they did vote, it didn't necessarily mean their vote was going to be counted, okay? But we were not allowed to turn anybody away if they wanted to vote. The Board of Elections basically went through all of the people who were not registered, who didn't have ID.
All right. So looked it up. State regs. StateRegs today.com. And then that's the website I'm using. You can kind of type in certain things to kind of look up the regulations for Maryland. What are the current voter ID requirements in Maryland for registering to vote? To register to vote in Maryland, you must provide one of the following forms of identification or documentation that includes your name and current address. Maryland's driver license or issued state ID. So ID is one way you can prove yourself. Last 4 digits of your social security number. Another thing that obviously you need to be a citizen to have. Copy of a current and valid photo ID. So another piece of ID. And a copy of a utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck, or other government documentation that shows your name and address in Maryland. So the documentation obviously has to be a specific type of documentation. Utility bills, I wonder if those are given to anybody who rents a place, or do you have to be a citizen to get a utility bill? Because I always found it interesting, kind of off topic, why in order to verify whether you can go to the DMV, you had to have 2 forms of verifiable mail. You can't just bring them anything. So this process is obviously more. I do think the utility bill is probably a means, but they're probably going to check if that is a let me put this in the system and see if this is a verifiable way to verify your existence. So he tried to characterize that as, oh, just bring this mail and you can vote. No, it's not that simple by any means to vote in Maryland. Now, one thing, when I scroll down, no, a non-Maryland driver's license cannot be used as a form of identification when registering to vote in Maryland. You must provide one of the acceptable forms of identification. So all this goes to a system to verify your identity. So again, not just any other mail. And I'm pretty sure, I guess I can't verify that. I would have to research a little bit more, and I could do that. But I'm pretty sure this goes into the system, and only citizens, again, still can vote. It also says, do I need my voter ID when casting my ballot? No, currently there's no requirement voters in Maryland to show identification when casting their ballot on election day. However, you are voting by absentee ballot for the first time after registering by mail. You have to register, and the utility bill will be able to register you so your vote counts, basically.
And at that point, they verified whether or not they were actual citizens or not.
Yeah, but what you're saying, you're implicating that Biden had a big plan. Let's have all those immigrants come here to vote. The thing is, that's not the reason they came. They came for money. They came for a job. That's the reason they come.
The illegal immigrants as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, the illegals as well. I can't say, or I cannot debate if they went and vote, but I don't think it's some great plan to get, because at least the 2 states that I know about, California and Florida, you have to have an ID.
Okay, I'll give you the last word.
Okay, I think that COVID was really, what Biden was taking advantage of, okay? And the fact that, okay, we did have a COVID problem. We had illegals come into this country. They didn't even have to take a COVID test, okay? But I just think this whole thing was due to convenience. Here we had a pandemic. It was a convenient opportunity to have illegals come in based on either what you're saying or just the fact that they didn't have.
How are you drawing your conclusions? Let me hear this again.
Florida, you have to have an ID.
Okay, I'll give you the last word.
Okay, I think that COVID was really, what Biden was taking advantage of, okay? And the fact that, okay, we did have a COVID problem. We had illegals come into this country. They didn't even have to take a COVID test, okay? But I just think this whole thing was due to convenience. Here we had a pandemic. It was a convenient opportunity to have illegals come in based on either what you're saying or just the fact that they didn't have work to come to this country illegally.
Okay. All right. Did anybody change their mind? The claim again, the best explanation for the increase in illegal immigration during the Biden administration is all of you changed your mind? You all changed your mind?
I did. Yeah.
Bottom one sentence, why?
Well, I think the biggest reason is that there was an incentive to do so. I don't think the whole reason was for them to shift the election, but a thing that people need to remember is that illegals can have an influence on our election without ever voting because of redistricting and the census map, and then populations change, and then it can completely change elections that way too.
Okay, why did
Populations change is a very broad term and it sounds very nationalist, but we'll let it move. Census redistricting. I mean, redistricting doesn't happen like all the time, but that one's a more compelling conversation. Depending if they redistrict based off undocumented immigrants, I'd have to look that up.
How did you change your mind?
Because, as this gentleman mentioned, in the state of Maryland, they weren't able to turn away any voters, which means potentially there were illegal immigrants voting. So it could have been a factor for.
Potentially, there's no proof for that. I already gave you the information.
Why Biden wanted them to be there.
And the best explanation for that was voter importation.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Who else changed their mind? Oh, wow, you changed your mind. God, everybody changed their mind.
I was there, and I changed my mind because I feel that it really was the main reason. I don't think it was the only reason, but it was the main reason. If you remember, Obama was the one that wanted to build the wall high, and if all these illegal immigrants who came in would come in and be registered Republicans, you would see the Democrats saying, we got to tear this wall down immediately.
Okay, you changed your mind as well. Why? What, in one sentence, two sentences, why?
Because here in South Florida, you can buy a Social Security card and driver's license. There's a black market. So all the Democrats.
So you buy a fake Social Security card to vote. Okay. All right.
You're bringing them in and they're taking them to the black market. Here, buy your Social Security card, buy your driver's. Now you're voting.
All right.
It's easy to vote.
You changed your mind as well.
You're
That's
a
because
fucking idiot.
I actually experienced on vacation in California, there was a
One sentence.
Okay, there was a representative at this big convention, Mexican convention of migrant workers and everything, and their purpose was
One
to
sentence.
register all of these people to vote. And I said, if they're illegal.
The thing is, like, the more I learn about like people, the more you realize that their understanding of situations, even if it's an anecdotal circumstance, can be so absolutely wrong, and they're just mischaracterizing it. And we all know that memories are flawed, but it also doesn't help that you have a preconceived kind of conditional, not preconceived conditional understanding on how certain circumstances would and should be, that you can kind of phrase everything that you experience into a very unfavorable way. Now, that's a harsh way to kind of look at everybody, to think that they're not being genuine in the way that they respond to things. But like, my experience at this point in terms of interacting with MAGA is most of them are disingenuous and kind of full of shit. So, you know.
They can't register to vote.
Okay.
That's not the, they did
Okay.
anyway.
Did you just change your mind too? No, you were there. You were there. Okay. Could you come forward, please? So, I'm looking at you two, and then what do you have to say? All those people shifted.
I still think that if you believe that the best explanation for immigration is that administration wants more people to vote for them, I think that's just totally untrue. First off, I don't think that illegal immigrants voting played any major role in the election. And while I do think it's an interesting point, David, that it could affect redistricting, I don't think that it would affect that to any amount that would actually change the amount of the election, or that Democrats are thinking, okay, well, let's let more illegal immigrants in so that we can redistrict.
All right, now let's swap you two out. So we have significant movement when I was not looking. What do you think caused people to move, to skew it so heavily to that side?
Fake news.
Really?
There's a super easy question that nobody will be able to answer. How is it possible that Biden imported millions of illegal voters to vote for him, and somehow Harris got less votes than Biden?
A lot of people want to say something. Hold on.
I mean, unless we're saying that Trump imported millions of illegal voters as well, and then, I don't understand how Kamala would have gotten less votes. It doesn't make any sense.
All right, let me just swap you out, sir. You come in, sir. Tell him.
Okay, I think that Kamala Harris was.
Let me think. I was trying to figure out like all the information I'm looking up in terms of like, I already knew this, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm covering all my P's and Q's. There is no evidence at all that any undocumented immigrant can vote in the federal election at all. Like at all. You can't find a one bit of evidence, and if it does happen, it's a very, 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 very small percentage, like less than 1%. So I'm trying to find something to attach to all these BS talking points, And the stuff about Maryland, I mean, they use utility bill to verify your information, so it's to register you, but you still have to be a citizen to be registered. It's just a means of verification. They don't go like, oh, utility bill, go vote. That's not how it works. Not at all. So again, MAGA is just being dumb.
A particularly uninspiring candidate. I think she performed terribly on the campaign trail, unfortunately. So I don't think that there was anybody who was very, well, there were supporters of the campaign, but obviously there was not a widespread sort of groundswell of energy behind her campaign. So while they may have thought perhaps we might get a lot of votes from a particular group or a particular base, it didn't actually eventuate just because she wasn't a particularly impressive candidate.
I'm not sympathetic to those arguments. One of the frustrating things I think about arguing with Trump supporters, there's a thing I like to call all roads lead to Rome. Basically, no matter what happens, there's always some kind of explanation for it. So in 2020, the election was clearly rigged because Trump lost. But then when Trump won in 2024, does that mean that it wasn't rigged then? But it means that, well, actually, they just rigged 2020, but they didn't rig 2024. But there's no evidence of any election being rigged except when Trump tried to rig it with the electoral votes. And then when you look at the actual arguments for, well, they brought in illegal immigrants to vote, but the illegal immigrants that were brought in to vote didn't like Kamala Harris enough that, like if you want to argue the merits of the campaign, that's fine, but you would never bring in illegal immigrants and then say, now that we brought you here legally, we want you guys to make the best decision on who you want to vote for. And then also just a quick thing, because this kept being brought up, whether or not you need an ID to vote is not the same as whether or not you need an ID to register to vote. Those are two fundamentally separate questions.
Thank
and
you.
Every state, as conservatives love states' rights, ought to have the ability to decide how they ID people or how they decide who's allowed to vote at the time of the election. But when it comes to registering somebody to vote, that's a separate question that you do need some form of identification for anybody that's registered to vote in any state.
Okay, so I don't think I made any claim about the election being rigged in either 2020 or in this election. So I'm not sure where that came from. But
Well, this is an election rigging claim, right?
Well, no,
the best,
I didn't personally make the claim that the election was rigged. I think if there was an intention to bring people in of a particular group which might lean towards the Democratic side, and that was the intention to allow people across the border, then potentially that's it's something which didn't work.
That sounds like you think that the election was rigged. Stop trying to ride the fence, you bot.
Maybe it was an attempt to do something which didn't actually work out in their favor.
Can I ask a question just on
yes,
that?
yeah, and then we're out of time, but go ahead.
Or just I guess two things to keep in mind. It's the same question, kind of like, what would it take to ever convince you that that wasn't the case, considering I don't see any evidence of there being that plan in place? Like, how could you possibly be persuaded out of that position, I guess?
Out of the position that
the illegals just come here, they came here to work. COVID came, it destroyed a lot of economies around the world, and a lot of people were like, hey, the US is a huge economy, and they want a lot of workers, I'm gonna go work up there. What would it take to persuade you that maybe that's why they came instead of Biden somehow?
I think there's definitely those factors. However, the amount of staggering incompetence at the border, I mean, the amount of people that were allowed to just go through, there was either a plan in place to stand down certain security measures, or there was orders to not enforce them as fully as before. So I think it's just the facts play out that there was.
You have no facts. Your Twitter post
security.
plays out.
Okay,
Your
okay.
Twitter
Can you go
post.
back, and I'm going to invite you up forward, sir?
Yeah, let's hear
directly
the
address
fucking
his
MAGA.
comments, please.
Destiny,
bot, bro.
I'm very open-minded. I want you to convince me of it otherwise. But why were they illegal?
Don't lie to my face, you little bitch. Do not lie to my face that you're open-minded. Do not do that. You're not open-minded. You obviously have a preconceived notion of everything kind of leaning MAGA. Do not lie. I hate when MAGA does this. They just be lying.
Immigrants paid
Acting
so
like
much money
they're better
into this
people than
country.
they actually
I think
are.
that there are dollar amounts you can offer people so that they have ability to subsist in the United States while they're here. The biggest issue that we have, unfortunately, this conversation is already lost for all conservatives. You can't convince them of this otherwise, but we don't have like an illegal immigration problem such that they just come here illegally. The issue that we have is that the laws on the books are way too generous, and even I'll admit this, for people claiming asylum. And the issue is somebody can come into this country and they don't have to like sneak past the border guard and do some crazy shit. They can just turn themselves in and go, oh, I'm an asylum seeker. And once they've made that claim, because of our due process laws on the books, you have to process them in a court. And people, especially after COVID, when a ton of people started making these claims and then the system got backed up, you end up with catch and release, where somebody says, okay, I'm an asylum seeker, and you say, well, I can't really process you right now. Here's a slip, like come back in your court date. And now you get all these people, millions of them, that are making these claims. Well, if they are going to be in this country, I mean, you have to give them some sort of like subsistence pay. Otherwise, they're going to commit crime. They're just going to start stealing stuff. Like, it's not ideal, I admit, but like, what else are you going to do?
Well, isn't it a convenience, or isn't it a fact that this happened during the Biden administration? 30 grand just to come to this, and then they came up with the undocumented immigrants, and they were trashing their IDs at the border.
If
Didn't
people
that
are
happen
trashing
during
their
Biden?
ID,
Isn't it obvious that this was one of the many strategies used? Unfortunately, they had Harris, who's horrible, horrible. Anyone can watch this person.
I hate this guy so much. What is this? Okay, so the undocumented thing about using that to vote was a lie. So he just lied there. I'm surprised Destiny's not like jumping onto that, considering he tends to be pretty informed about this stuff. But that they're trashing their IDs at the border, what is he talking about?
A disaster. This
You can't really
woman
say that
was
if
a
it's an illegal- if
disaster
it's an-
to this country. How can anyone vote for a disaster? Plus, you have Biden. This issue right here. How much money were they giving these illegal immigrants and asking them to ditch their IDs? It's obvious. Tell me how that isn't obvious and how that isn't a strong argument to convince you to get on this side.
Because I don't think that somebody's going to come here on the hope that they get a little bit of money from the United States government to subsist here and do nothing. I think people are generally coming here to work.
Not
That's
a
why
little bit
when
of
we
money.
see
Absolutely.
that's
Everyone
why-
wants to leave their country to come to the greatest country on the planet.
I'm so
Now,
sorry.
why
I
not
love
come
this
here
country.
quicker?
This country is
Let's
not the
open
greatest country.
borders.
This
That's
greatest
what Biden did.
country.
Let's open those doors.
The
Let's let
United
them all
States-
in.
the United
Let's get rid
States-
of their ID.
the United
Let's give them 30 grand.
Yeah, it's not
It's
30 grand.
obvious.
The United
Convince
States is,
me, please. I
the
beg you to
Uni- you're not-
convince me.
You're not here to be convinced. But the
You're
United States-
you're not here to be convinced. You're here to be an asshole. Shut the fuck up. I hate people like that so much. I need to stop talking. I need to stop saying that. That's not really helping my case. Just repeating something. I sound whiny. I sound whiny. Just because I don't like someone, I don't just need to keep on repeating it. But I'm trying to like. I hate when they just say stuff like that, bro. It's just
Simple
it's so
tactic.
The
Very
United
simple
States is
words.
not the greatest country in the world for welfare. The United States is the greatest country in the world for opportunity because you can be the best version of yourself here.
Who's
Not
arguing
because we give a
welfare?
ton of welfare.
Opportunity.
Opportunity to work.
Exactly. Why not come in with 30 grand and nothing?
Why not? What?
Why not come in with 30 grand in your pocket, then nothing? That was obvious. Biden
I don't think
opening
nobody
doors.
is getting.
Let's
They're
open
not
the
getting a
floodgates.
$30,000 check
Let's
to come
open
into
the
the United
floodgates.
States. Then why didn't Trump allow them to close them when they had the border bill? That Lankford, a Republican in the Senate, he proposed a border bill. We had a border bill to close the border. Why did Trump shoot that down?
You know, that's a great fact. I couldn't argue something that might be a fact. I don't know what is the fact, but the fact that Trump ran on building the wall and closing the borders, what you say makes zero sense to me.
So he only cares about his Twitter posts, but any other facts, he just, oh, I don't know that. But here's my Twitter post though that said this. Okay.
Okay, you should
Explain
look
this to
into
me.
that. Well, it's,
How-
the
why
issue
would
is
that make sense?
Well, because the real reason, and again, I'm just screaming into the abyss here, but the real reason is illegal immigration is not anywhere near the problem that Trump and everybody else makes it out to be, which is why he had no problem killing that border bill, and which is why he's been in office now for a month and has done absolutely nothing at the border. Instead, all we've done is we've antagonized our neighbors, we've threatened insane tariffs, and then we've made enemies of ourselves to the rest of the world, I guess by supporting the total expulsion of every Gazan from the Gaza Strip and by supporting Russia. We haven't done any, what happened to the border? I thought that the border was the most important thing. Why have we gone a whole month without any focus on it?
Well, obviously, you're not talking to the abyss because Trump won. And everything that you can do to convince me otherwise is extremely valuable.
Are you
So when-
disappointed that Trump hasn't fixed the border in his first month in office or done anything about it at all?
No one can fix the border in a month.
He hasn't touched it.
No, he hasn't
I
touched
thought it was the most important
How
thing.
many executive orders has he put into place?
So how many of them deal with the border?
Are we going to get there? Are you saying that Trump is not going to deal with the border, which he hasn't
What, did
already
he run
in
out
4
of
years
ink in his pen? I don't
administration?
understand.
What
Was
is
it
there
more
not to
important to get
understand?
rid of trans
Great
women
things
in
take time. They
high
don't
school
happen
sports?
overnight.
No,
They don't
but why
happen
he's not doing
overnight.
anything right now? Are you telling me getting rid of birthright citizenship was more important, or getting rid of trans people in grade school sports was more important, or that writing any of the other 50 different executive orders on random issues was more important than closing the border? I thought this was the most important issue.
The most important issues? We have tons of issues.
What's more important than the border?
The greatest issues to handle right away are the low-lying fruit, and that's what he's doing.
Which
he's
is-
only been there for a month.
Yeah, and he hasn't. What issues has he handled that were more important than the border so far?
Well, we could sit in here and argue about all the issues that he has done, which that's why we're here.
Give me one.
He doesn't care, bro. He's just happy that his Lord and Savior is in office. He doesn't care if he does anything because he's an idiot. He just wants to be spoon-fed all the different things that Donald Trump says he's going to do. These people are just going to buy anything Trump says because they don't know any better. They're like little babies. They're like children. They don't know any better. They're
But
just
the
gotta
fact
listen
is,
to their parents.
immigration is absolutely on his target,
Okay.
and it's going to be solved.
But threatening 25% tariffs was more important. Tariffing steel, that was more important. Going
Bringing
to
more
talk
money
to,
into the country so we can handle
bringing money how into the
immigration is
country?
absolutely
Where's the money
important.
coming from? The Republicans asked for a $4 trillion increase on the deficit. I thought we were done deficit spending.
We could sit here and argue on these small
He
topics.
doesn't
Yeah,
know
we're out
anything.
of time. We're out of time. Let me do this. I'm going to swap you in, sir, and you back. So the best explanation for the increase in illegal immigration during the Biden administration is voter importation. What do you have to say to this gentleman?
The left side of politics has a proclivity for open borders, porous borders, call it what you like, not so much because they want to import voters for the Democrat Party, but because a deeper fundamental philosophical reason, an ideology is driving them. And that ideology is that everyone should be allowed to cross whatever border they like at any time, regardless of whether or not they're going to vote for the Democrats. It is a deep impulse of people who tend in the direction of Marxism, let's say, to reject the idea of nation states and the importance of nation states. And so it's not a unique phenomenon in the US. This is true across left-leaning political parties in Australia, Canada, throughout Europe as well.
It's always existed, of course.
Yes. So I would say that they weren't primarily motivated by thinking that it would help them win the election, but rather they're going to take the opportunity as soon as they get into power to allow the borders to be open because they think that is the compassionate thing to do, to allow these poor denizens of other countries to come into this country and to have all the opportunities that this country can afford them.
We don't have an open border. Why do people say, why do they just lie? Even their characterization, is the left more sympathetic to illegal immigrants? Yes, but we do not have an open border. That's not a thing. We do not. We deport a lot of people. We just have an asylum process issue. That is the issue. Now, if you want to abolish it, make it more stringent, I mean, sure, but we do not just let people come in the country. That's not a thing.
Regardless of how they vote.
And that's your subjective opinion, absolutely. You know, the passion of opening borders, absolutely. But I think it's blatantly obvious the fact that they've given.
I want to.
And so much money and so much help to the illegal immigrants, and to tell them that stitch your IDs, we don't need to see, we don't need to know who you are. We just need you over here and remember who's helping you.
He's just lying. None of the things he said is true.
Let me just swap you in, sir.
I'll try to look up everything he said. None of them
believe
can
in,
be
I'll swap you
verified.
out. Wherever you stood, you step out. So what do you have to say to this
Okay,
gentleman?
so yeah, I don't disagree that that's definitely like an undergirding philosophy of that, but I think that what a lot of us are missing here is that why I'm not all the way over there is because I think it's financial incentive more than anything. Illegal immigration and this border crisis has become an industry with hoteliers getting billion dollar.
What do you think we're allowing illegal immigrants for people who own hotels, bro? Are we serious? Like, are we serious? Are we serious? Like, the problem for me is that if you want to be conspiratorial where you think everything kind of leads to the bottom line for the top dollar, then how can you look at what the MAGA administration and Elon Musk is doing and just be okay with it? Like, make it make sense to me. It just doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It does not make sense to me.
Contracts from our government to house migrants, by the way, in very fancy, expensive hotels too. So I think that we're kind of missing that point, and helping with the election isn't just about
fancy,
direct voters
expensive
saying none of
hotels
the
is
illegals
an
can vote at all.
exaggeration.
They're coming.
They're luxurious hotels, but luxury is just a empty filler word that just means a hotel that's not trash. Luxury hotels are not that great. They're just normal hotels, honestly. So,
and they're adding to this industry of illegal migration. All these people are making millions and millions of dollars off it. Who are they donating that money to? It's going to circle back. So I feel like it's this ecosystem that kind of feeds itself. And I don't think it has to be like 1 + 1 = direct vote from an illegal. There's a lot of ways that people can use the industry of immigration and illegal immigration to affect politics.
Yes, I think it's incidental to the average illegal immigrant that it was the Democrats, for example, who allowed them to come in. I think that they just wanting to come in order to reap the fruits and the rewards of a nation like this, as they reap the fruits and rewards of going into a place like the United Kingdom. But again, I would come back to the claim is about whether or not is the best explanation is the reason why they've opened up the border is to increase their voter base. I think that they don't care about, well, they do care, of course, about whether or not their vote increases, but fundamentally what is driving the Democrats and what is driving the left is a sense of compassion for people who don't have the same kind of opportunity. And that's the reason why. It's not so they can selfishly get the vote and win the election, because I think they would have the border open throughout, before the election cycle. At any time they happen to get into power, they are going to have a more porous border because they think an increase in the amount of legal and illegal immigration is a wonderful thing.
All right, cool. Let's go back.
There's some things I agree there.
Back to the neutral. The U.S. should have birthright citizenship. Move.
Before Donald Trump, everybody would say agree, but because of all this recent conversation, now everybody just hates brown people. So let's hear all the Donald Trump talking points. What's the Donald Trump talking points? Oh, birthright citizenship was here for slavery. It was not here to deal with immigrants. That's the first. That's the big one.
Why don't you decide among yourselves who's going to go to the neutral? You go to the strongly disagree. And why don't you decide among yourselves who's going to go to the absolutely agree? Okay, we're going to see if any of these arguments, especially you, move you, and we're going to give you an opportunity to ask either of them questions at some point. And again, anyone is free to move at any point along the lines. Okay.
Wow, it's interesting to see him strongly agree here.
and we're going to set the timer for 3 minutes. Have a conversation.
First off, birthright citizenship was enumerated in our Constitution. It was then in 1898 in a Supreme Court case ruling, U.S. versus, and it was a Chinese name with 3 syllables. I'm not going to take a crack at it. That it was that a foreign, 2 illegal immigrants or 2 foreign immigrants that came to America, if they had a child on U.S. soil, that child is a U.S. citizen. So I believe that we shouldn't go about overturning Supreme Court. I believe that we shouldn't go about editing our Constitution in something that's been that same way and reinforced by the Supreme Court.
Well, I think the birthright citizenship in America is much different than it is across other countries.
They moved because he brought an actual. They were going like, "Oh, it's only for slavery." They probably thought it was only for slaves. Then he gave an actual example. No, it's not just only for slaves. And then they moved. Oh man,
France and
that's
other countries in
hilarious.
Europe have a version of birthright citizenship, but it requires that at least one parent is a citizen.
You know, I can't be too mean too at the same time. Like sometimes I have to be generous. I need someone to reel me in sometimes. Like sometimes I can be a little mean and apathetic to like people who just don't know politics. And it's just like most people don't know politics, and I really try to be like understanding of that. But it's hard when people make such strong opinions based off little knowledge and then think that what they're saying is fact. It just can be a very dangerous atmosphere to live in.
Or I think in the UK must have at least legal stay. I don't think America requires any of that. So again, going back to kind of like the industry aspect of it, we literally have hospitals that rent out. Some of the most common one are Chinese immigrant women that will come in to the hospital because they can afford it, have a child here, and they get legal status, and their child gets legal status. So I think it's being abused, and I think it's clearly being abused. And
what situations are these people just coming here having kids and then leaving? Like give me an example,
at least
bro.
one parent is a citizen. Or I think in the UK must have at least legal stay. I don't think America requires any of that. So again, going back to kind of like the industry aspect of it, we literally have hospitals that rent out. Some of the most common one are Chinese immigrant women that will come in to the hospital because they can afford it, have a child here.
Time to look that up. Are Chinese women having kids in America for citizenship? Let's look that up.
And they get legal status, and their child gets legal status. So I think it's being abused, and I think it's clearly being abused. And I don't know of any other developed countries that have that kind of a system where it's cross and you're American.
Sure. So I don't think that that's a majority of birthright citizenship cases where people are flying in or traveling from another country, having a child, and then going back to that country. I think that the majority of cases are illegal immigrants that are fleeing the conditions in their own country that they literally cannot go back to. The other issue is that if we have a child that's born on American soil, but we don't consider them an American, they grow up in America, they go to American schools, they have an American accent, let's say they never go back to their home country, they never end up speaking that language, so are we just going to deport them?
I think we have gradations of like
All right, so I looked it up. So there was a couple, Michael Liu and Phoebe Dong were found guilty of 1 count of conspiracy and 10 counts of money laundering in a federal court in Los Angeles. The case against the pair, okay, I found this on apnews.com. California birth tourism, China pregnant traveler citizenship. That is what the article is called. They were charged in 2019 along with more than a dozen others, including a woman who later pled guilty to running a company known as You Win USA and were sentenced to 10 months in prison. Prosecutors and attorneys declined to comment. Helped several hundred birth tourists between 2012 and 2015, and charged as the tourists much as $40,000 for services, including apartment rentals during their stays. Okay, so the pair worked. What to say during their blah blah. Deceiving U.S. immigrant authorities. Now separated, failed to blah blah. It's not a crime. He said the woman traveled with help from the company, not his clients, and that Dawn assisted the woman who would face beauty give birth back home, and had they returned to give birth back home. Okay, so yeah, there's something called birth tourism. A lot of it is associated with the idea that these people are trying to escape from the one-child policy, which might not exist anymore in China. I'm unsure. But But yeah, it seems like this was a little scheme. Not doesn't happen in the majority of the time, but they were punished for this action. So definitely there's a punishment towards this as well. But that's probably what he's referring to. So I did find an article in regards to what he was saying.
Residency in this country, right? You can be a citizen, you can have legal stay, which means you can't vote or do other things. So I don't think it has to be an all or nothing. I don't think we should reward, even if they are families, with citizenship, which is American citizenship. People, it is one of the most valuable things in the entire world to individuals. And I don't think we should be rewarding individuals that come in immediately breaking our laws, especially when it's kind of done in a manipulative type of way. And I don't think that's a majority of it, but I use that example to demonstrate it's so prolific that now it's an almost industry.
Okay.
I mean, it did say industry in the article. Prolific? Nah, it's not prolific. It's not an issue. But does it happen a decent amount for potentially? But there might be there's a certain type of industry. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to get rid of birthright citizenship just because that people are taking advantage of that idea. It's kind of the same thing with the Second Amendment, right? Or even freedom of speech. There's just elements that people could take advantage of it. That doesn't mean that it should be gone altogether. Now, could there be a amendment? Could it be altered? Could it be modified? Potentially, there's a potential argument there. As long as there's not a law that I'm not taking into consideration right now, it shouldn't be an absolute thing. And I don't think it's an absolute thing. So I'll kind of research that a little bit more while they talk. But getting rid of it is disgusting. And the way that Trump administration tends to do things tends to be on the extreme end in the first place.
So what you said, do you think that there should be somewhere between citizenship where it's like they can live here, they can work here, but they can't vote? Is that?
I think it would kind of have to depend on the case. I think right now we're going through something where we're seeing the amount of people that we have here illegally, and we're going through a lot of changes. I think once we get a look at the actual numbers, we can make decisions like that. But right now, I think it's being abused.
All right, our 3 minutes is up. You, sir, have questions to each gentleman here.
Well, I agree on some points with both of them. My own opinion is that there should be a little more study done on it. This is a relatively new area. What he said about the 1898 decision, that was great, but the conditions were different in 1898 than they are in 2025, and Supreme Court decisions get overturned all the time.
Do you have any questions specifically for either one?
No, I would just like to see much more study done on it before I make a decision.
And when you say study, what do you mean?
I'd like to see, as much as I don't want to see more government commissions, there should be some sort of a commission set up where I agree with this gentleman that there should be gradations of citizenship or residency requirements, that type of thing.
Okay. Who changed their mind here? Who moved? Did you move twice? Yes. You moved twice. That's good. That's good. Moving twice is good. So what caused you to move the first time in a bottom line, and then what caused you to move back?
The bottom line is the citizenship. I'm a constitutionalist, and I agree with that. But then I didn't think about the fact that there are people coming in illegally to have a child here, and then they get to stay here because their child is an American.
So you moved twice. You moved once? Mm-hmm. Okay, bottom line, why'd you move?
Because people from Central and South America, they're coming here to have kids, and I think there's a gray area. The ones, if they're children from legal immigrants, they're fine to stay. But if they're children from illegal immigrants, I don't think they should.
Okay. Who else moved? Where did you move from where to where?
I moved from disagree to slightly agree, and the bottom line was the constitutional argument. I didn't realize that there was such a long history of birthright citizenship in the US. However, I've not moved to fully agreeing, just because I do believe that it is open to some abuse.
Okay, I'm going to do something. Everybody stay there. I'm going to have you go back, and you decide amongst yourselves who wants to go forward. And then I'm going to swap out the neutral. Can you come forward, sir? Okay, you have 3 minutes to have a conversation. The U.S. should have birthright citizenship, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask questions. Go.
Yeah, I like to use common sense and logic in any decision that I see fit. And for example, I don't see anyone looking as having a child as a benefit of taking advantage of a system where, okay, we get our papers, but God, now we have to deal with this kid. Jesus Christ, what do we? This is horrible. It's unfathomable to me that people would come here, not already want a child, but if they come here illegally and say, you know what, here's a benefit. My parents did it. They were here on a visa. Their visa.
I think this guy thinks he's more intelligent than he actually is. I'm gonna be
It was going
honest.
to expire. Okay, let's look at our options. Oh, look at this. We're married, aren't we? We want to have kids anyways. Don't we want to have a family? Great, perfect. So you want to legalize immigrants, but you don't want to have a child be born in this country and not be an instant citizen? Makes zero sense to me.
Wait, what you're saying is that I don't want legal immigrants that come here and have a child to have citizenship for their child? That's not what the premise is. We're talking about illegal immigration. So they cross illegally, have a child, and now they get legal stay and their child is a citizen. That's what I'm disagreeing with. Of course, my parents are refugees, so I was born here after my parents migrated here from Russia. I understand the value of immigration and refugee status and all of that, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about people abusing the system of birthright citizenship. And on the point about the Constitution, I believe that was intended for recently released slaves for their children to have citizenship and be considered American citizens. And if you look at the actual text, it says subject to the
Hey, there you go. Exact talking point that he got from Donald Trump. If we go to exact text, it starts getting very dangerous because that Second Amendment text is not very friendly to the idea that it's like, oh yeah, we all should just have guns and use it whenever we want. So, hey man, want to watch where you're
thereof,
going.
which some legal scholars interpret as they are subject to the laws of, meaning they are legally there. So if you're not subject to the laws, why would you get the benefit of citizenship just by birthright?
Some
Birthright
scholars.
citizenship doesn't talk about illegals or legals. It's talking about being born in this country and instantly being a citizen. What happens with the parents is another issue. The point here is that if you're born in this country, how terrible would it be to say, hey, look, you were born here, but too bad, so sad, you need to go back.
I just don't understand how you so agreed with that they're using illegal immigration to manipulate our country and politics, but then you're totally okay with the same people just having children and getting legal stay.
Absolutely not. I never agreed with that. That's what you're saying, that people are taking advantage of the system, coming to this country and say, hey, let's just have a kid and get our papers. I disagree with that.
Oh,
I
no,
don't
they
believe
can
that's
come
happening. That's a
pregnant.
myth. People believe certain
It's
things,
not
but
a
there's
myth.
zero facts proving this. And
This guy's an enigma. I'm so surprised that he's so he doesn't think people are doing this. So if because there are people who do this, like it does happen. Interesting.
any way, shape, and form. Just use your logic. Who would have a child just have papers? And then have to deal with the 30 years of that child.
There's left-leaning magazines that have talked about this.
We have three minutes. I'm going to give you one question to each side. Why don't you give this gentleman the first question?
Okay, well, first of all, you took away one of my arguments about the initial intent.
So what's your question?
My question to you is, if somebody is here illegally and they go through the process of becoming a legal immigrant, not a citizen, but an immigrant, do you think that they should have the opportunity to become a citizen?
Okay, let me understand the question. If they've come here legally, they're following a process to become legal.
They've come here illegally, okay? They've gone through the process to be here legally, but not a citizen, okay? Do you think they should have the opportunity to become a citizen?
Define coming here illegally.
You cross the border, okay? And you go through the process, you go through your court dates, and at that point you get a green card, okay? But you're still not a citizen, okay? Do you think that they should have the opportunity once they get a green card, do you think that they should have the opportunity to become an American citizen?
Absolutely, because they actually came into this country and started following a process, 100%.
Was his answer sufficient to move you to slightly agree or no?
Yeah.
Okay, well then it's a free country.
Okay.
And now you have one question to this
Okay,
gentleman.
and when I say become a citizen, I mean taking the test to become a
Okay.
citizen, okay?
What's your question to
What,
this
what, are your,
gentleman?
what are your thoughts about that?
About his answer to your question?
About my question and his answer.
If someone illegally crosses the border, so illegally comes to this country, and then after like X amount of years or something, you're saying like wants to try to apply for citizenship or just stay?
No, they get a green card, okay,
Right.
and they stay, and then they have the opportunity to become a citizen.
I think
Do you think they should have that opportunity?
I think if they pass a certain threshold, yeah, I mean, sure, but it has to be a pretty tight, narrow threshold to pass because that's like, again, it feels like rewarding negative behavior with something that people are killing themselves.
What is that? Oh, this guy's dangerous. Negative behavior. He wants very specific people in America. That is some dangerous. What do you mean by rewarding negative behavior? Because based off his characterization, this person came through the process. They're waiting for the official legal process to officially go through, They got a green card, so all of it's within the process. Where's the negative behavior? Trying to come in America, is that the negative behavior?
To get. You know what I mean? And it's so unfair, especially whoever mentioned that immigration takes forever. You're right. It's true. Our immigration system is a mess. I don't think it needs to be more complicated. I think we should make it more streamlined for sure. But what's happening now is clearly abusive. And I don't know. I just feel like it's that's really obvious.
You don't
right?
make sense.
And
You
you're
don't make
right.
sense
It
at
is-
all.
It does take a long time because we know people that have come here legally, and it took them 8
Okay.
years.
Okay. Did he say anything that convinced you to move back to the neutral or no?
No, I'm good right here.
Okay. Did anybody change their mind on anything? You did change your mind.
I moved a little more agree, yeah.
What caused you to change your mind?
He reminded me, I guess, of something I've heard before, but stateless people are a huge problem for the world, and the idea of having somebody come in here, give birth to a child, and they don't have citizenship in the United States, and then the legality of that person coming in is questionable. Like, sometimes the question of where you deport them to. Are you creating stateless people without citizenship? Because it's unclear if they would even have citizenship in another area, so that was
Is
the reason why I
that,
changed it.
is that sufficient to move anybody else? That? No?
There were two other.
Go ahead.
There was two other quick things too. I heard the constitutional argument. One argument that I hear a lot from conservatives, or really from anybody, the left does it too, depending on the issue. Some people have a principled attachment to some things, even if bad things are happening. I personally, I really like guns. I have a lot of firearms. Picked up one right after the show. I think that there are bad things that happen with guns in this country, and I think some people abuse the Second Amendment. But I would never
Destiny, stop taking my talking points, all right? All right? Stop taking my talking points.
say, well, let's get rid of the Second Amendment because some people abuse it. Much the same, I think birthright citizenship is amazing. I love the Reagan speech where he talks about how I could never become French or Japanese in the same way a Frenchman or a Japanese citizen is Japanese or French, but anybody can become an American. And while there is an argument that not everybody around the world does birthright citizenship the same way the United States does, almost every country in the New World does birthright citizenship this way, not just for slaves, but because when people were coming over from colonies and going to South American countries or territories or North American ones, it was because they didn't want to be subjects of or citizens of the places that they were coming from. So almost every country in the New World in North and South America has birthright citizenship.
Okay. Yep, I'll give you a last word, sir.
Well, he said one of the points I wanted to make about South American, Caribbean countries, they have birthright citizenship. That's one of the points I wanted to make. But you all have to remember, we're talking about a baby, a small child who has no say in this. The conversation's going all over the place. But there's a baby involved, an innocent baby. What do we do with him? Put him in the middle of the ocean because he is not an American citizen that's born here? What do we do with it? Literally.
Brett, I'm going to give you, because you're Australian, from an island.
I wanted him
talk
to
about
answer
oceans,
that.
You're an expert on oceans.
I low-key wanted the other guy to go like, what do you do with that baby? And then he was like, well, it's not American. I don't care. Oh, yo, that would
I'm going to give you the last word.
By what criteria are people entitled to citizenship? Some people seem to assume that it comes down to genetics. So if both of your parents are US citizens, then by virtue of the fact that they are your parents, then you automatically inherit US citizenship. I'm not sure exactly what the legalities are. If you happen to be born overseas, you'll probably still be a US citizen. But I think that one criteria, at least, and there may be many, of course, you could become an immigrant here and go through the process legally and then become a US citizen. But why not throw into the mix, if you happen to be born here, why not also be a US citizen? The more that you have, the better the place will be. The more people, the better. The more problem solvers there are, the more creativity. Let's have at it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.